Trump is the closest thing to God.
Trump is the closest thing to God, really?
Absolutely, absolutely. He's what's gonna fix this nation. This nation's corrupt. We're all split. America used to be all together.
Yeah.
Now we're all split up. Why? We need to come back together. The only person who's gonna mold us is God first and then Trump.
God, then Trump.
God, then Trump, absolutely. But if God's not there, Trump's not gonna come out. I'll say that. Kamala comes out, Satan's out, and you better be scared.
The look on Jason Selvig's face says it all. The cult of personality Donald Trump has cultivated since his rise to power has had a disastrous effect on the general public and has specifically preyed on the most vulnerable people to bring them into the MAGA fold. Trump's messaging specifically targets voters who feel disaffected with the current system and offers them a false sense of hope and security, as well as a way out of their current material conditions. Sadly, though, in practice, Trump's policies only serve the rich and powerful, but the vast majority of his base will never see the truth because they will never look past what they like about this guy's personality.
How would you feel about him being a dictator?
I probably wouldn't be pissed about that at all.
You'd be okay with Trump being a dictator?
I'd be okay with it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you rather have 4 years of Donald Trump as a dictator or 4 years of Joe Biden as a president?
4 years of Donald Trump as a dictator, if he's going to make the country better. You know, I believe what Donald Trump says, and, you know, if he says it, then I'll go with it. And if he wants to be a dictator, then so be it. He's the president of the United States of America, and he would be my president.
I love Trump. I think everything he says is honest, and he's looking out for each and every one of us and the country's best interests.
Case in point, there are so many people out there who are so far gone that they refuse to see the writing on the wall and the dire implications that supporting their dear leader will bring to their fellow Americans.
Somebody asked me, can they be brought together? You know, I never thought, really, I wasn't thinking like they could, because they're very, very different. And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists.
If you consider yourself an honest person operating in good faith, there's no other way to interpret this other than pure authoritarianism. Political opponents who pose a legit threat to an authoritarian's unchecked power are always the first group targeted by the party in power. And in the wake of these comments from the wannabe strongman dictator, let's turn to a newly published report from the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg.
Donald Trump would regularly tell him and others how much he admired Hitler. And very specifically, John Kelly heard Donald Trump say repeatedly, and others have heard him say, that he admired aspects of Hitler's reign, and that he particularly admired the way that German generals were obedient.
Yep, you heard that right. Now, you shouldn't be all that surprised that Trump thinks this way, given his track record of praising dictators, right, and championing authoritarian policies like the Muslim ban, mass deportation of immigrants. But what's surprising is hearing General John Kelly, a hand-picked advisor to Trump, who couldn't be further away on the political spectrum than us, willing to go on the record with these claims.
Kelly would actually push back and say, you know, Hitler's generals spent a lot of time trying to kill him. And Donald Trump would say, no, that's not true. I mean, we all know it's true. It's in the history of Hitler's rule. There were constant attempts on Hitler's life by generals and other officers.
He would commented more than once that, you know, that Hitler did some good things too. And of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that. But if you know what Hitler was all about, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good. First of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason. And but he would occasionally say that.
Again, Kelly isn't some morally righteous hero who should be absolved for his role in the Trump administration, but the fact that he, of all people, Trump's former chief of staff, felt comfortable enough to go public about this right here, well, it sends a signal to the Trump campaign that he's being too sloppy with his rhetoric and may not be the figure to lead the Republican Party into the future.
Well, I'm looking at the definition of fascism. It's a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy. So certainly, in my experience, those are the kind of things that he thinks would work better in terms of running America.
And like clockwork, the spin factor is already firing at full speed.
And then you factor in the fact that he runs his own company, coming from the business world, the first one we've ever had. It's not even a public company. And then he obviously has frustration. And I could absolutely see him go, now, you know what? It would be great to have German generals that actually do what we asked them to do, knowing that's a third, maybe not fully being cognizant of the third rail of German generals who were Nazis and whatever. But he was frustrated with the slowdown of
It wasn't just a slowdown, it was insubordination.
It seems like Vice President Harris is closing with the threat to America from the former president. You saw that Atlantic piece referencing former Chief of Staff John Kelly talking about how the president talked about Hitler, and all of these things will be packaged together to make this closing argument that she's making alongside former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Does that work? We don't know. Right now, the momentum heading into this week seemed to be on the former president's side. But the get out the vote operation in different states is really the undetermined factor.
At the end, and there will be people who don't believe it, there will be people who refute it, and Donald Trump himself also refutes it. I would just humbly submit to Mr. Kelly that if he's worried about Hitler and he's worried about fascism, he ought to pick up the newspaper. There's thousands of Hitlers running around this country right now, running around college campuses, running around New York City, chasing Jewish people around, blocking their access on college campuses. If you're worried about Hitler and you're talking about Donald Trump, maybe open your eyes and take in what's happening on the American left in this country. Those are the Hitlers I'm worried about.
Fox News stooges Brian Kilmeade, Lawrence Jones, and Brett Baer all downplayed and brushed off Trump's comments, while CNN's representative of MAGA, Scott Jennings, took a slightly different approach. Yes, of course, because college students expressing their First Amendment rights to speak out and protest the untold barbarity of our government facilitating in the Middle East, using our taxpayer dollars for that, is comparable to Nazi ideology. I mean, come on. CNN should be embarrassed for having this guy on, platforming him, and allowing him to go on the smear campaign while simultaneously shifting attention and accountability away from Trump and the white nationalist base he's cultivated. But what should we expect when the media legitimizes and props up these views in a pathetic attempt to portray themselves as balanced and objective and, playing right down the middle?
If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. Or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.